afternoon to everyone. Buenas tardes. I have the honor of moderating this panel today. We've been hearing today about the great opportunities that exist to grow the economy and benefit the society through development of the space frontier. We also have heard about the importance of developing the talent and workforce, extremely important. And we have assembled a very accomplished group of experts in space education, engineering, science, and policy, all powerful women. And an honor to be with them in here. Thank you so much. I will first start by asking each of you to briefly say a bit about you, what you do, your experiences, and what motivated you to push the science and policy and education in space ecosystem. We'll start with Dr. Brown.
Hello, is this on? Oh, okay, all right. So first I'll start by saying I'm the Director of Space STEM and Workforce Policy at the National Space Council. And we are, the National Space Council that is, are responsible for providing objective advice to the President on the formulation and implementation of space policy and strategy. Commercial space, civil space, and my role focused on STEM education and workforce development and workforce for space is one that has not existed in any iteration of the Space Council before. My background is as a computer scientist and electrical engineer. I've spent a part of my career in industry as an engineer. I then went to graduate school and switched to computer science. So I'm a computer scientist, I was a computer science professor. I've worked in the nonprofit space and then transitioned into policy at the federal level. And so what I'm really excited about for this role in particular is that it's given me an opportunity to bring together all of the pieces of my experience in ways that are, I think, unique, but also can inform and shape policy at the federal, state, and local level, because I have an understanding of what it means. Like the poster session, I remember being a graduate student, doing posters, being nervous, so hats off to all of you who are out there doing the work, sharing your research. I had a big flashback. I got nervous again. And so I know what that's like. I know what that's like to be professor at a small liberal arts school at HBCU without a lot of funds, without a lot of resources, having to figure out how to do this and support students. And I also know what it's like to have worked in industry. And so I think you need all of those. We'll talk about a little bit about collaboration between the sectors later, and I think I'm out of time. So all that to say is thank you all for having me here, and I look forward to this conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Dr. Torres-Nieves.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Sheila Torres-Nieves. I'm a professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering at the University of Puerto Rico at Mayagüez. My background is, I'm an experimentalist in aerodynamics, turbulence, and boundary layers, so very fundamental research. And I also wear another hat at the institution as the director for the Center for Aerospace and Unmanned Systems Engineering. And through that center, the two most emblematic projects that we're working on right now, one of them is TurboLab. It's the first center of excellence of Pratt & Whitney in Puerto Rico and the Caribbean. And I'm also leading the development of the Aerospace Institute for Research. We recently received funds from the US Congress through NIST to improve our facilities and our infrastructure to expand on the offerings for our students. Similar to what Dr. Brown mentioned, I went into graduate school, as I said, my background is very fundamental in aerodynamics, and then I went on into industry. Then afterwards I moved to academia. So certainly having those two insights have significantly helped in pushing the initiatives that we're trying to spearhead at UPR.
Thank you, Dr. Torres-Nieves. Dr. Ragavan.
Hi everyone, I'm really happy to be here and thank everyone for coming. My name is Sita Ragavan. Yes, I'm the Associate Dean of Research and Graduate Studies at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. So in that role, I support developing strategies for research and supporting research growth of the faculty and of the graduate students. So I have a really exciting job, especially now in the aerospace field. So I started out also as an engineer, a student, like many of the students here. I was lucky to have the opportunity to study in 3 different continents. So I did my bachelor's in Singapore, where I was born and raised, and then I went to France for my master's, and I did my PhD in the US. And in part of my journey, I also worked in industry for about 8 years, doing structural upgrades for aircraft. So I enjoyed being an engineer. But I love my role in academia, where I have been a professor for about 15 years now, working with students who really energize me. And it's been great. We work on high temperature materials for rocket engines. We work on lunar dust mitigation to support the Artemis program. And we also work on designing sensors to help with human exploration of the moon and beyond. So this is a really exciting time to be whatever you are, in the university, being a student, in industry, and in academia. And we want to all have everyone kind of collaborate to make space research and technology at the forefront of what we do.
Thank you. I will follow up a question for you, Dr. Raghavan. Can you touch on strategies for academic and research institutions to foster innovation in space-related fields?
That's a great question. So innovation in space-related fields. Like, what is space-related field? What is it? And I feel like it's more than just people in space. It's people in every discipline, because the first thing I would say is that we are right now in the midst of a surge of innovation. It's catalyzed by launch access that's increased. And this surge of innovation brings numerous opportunities. Opportunities for rapid growth and innovation, but also opportunities to inspire students. So we need to kind of ride that wave and do as much with it as possible to bring students and the workforce, build that, and build the next generation of engineers in space and research and technology. How do I think we can do that? As academic institutions, I think we can foster collaboration because of the fact that space research and technology is so diverse. Then we need diverse ideas and diverse groups of people to be involved. People who are not even imagining that they could contribute to space need to be somehow brought into the picture. We have to somehow encourage them to bring their ideas in. I mean, just recently we've heard of fashion houses be part of astronaut suit development. We've heard of sportswear companies being part of looking at thermal insulation for space. So we need more of that outreach to find people who think that they are not part of it to actually be part of it. How do we do that? Strategies could be teaming workshops. It could be getting groups of students who are from diverse backgrounds together, and of course, making sure that everyone is part of it. Women in engineering is a big part of that as well. Other things I think we can do is partnerships and innovation. And being just from industry, I know how important it is for students to get hands-on projects. So project-based learning is really important. And what's great about the space industry right now is there are not just the large companies, but small startups that are really, they're answering the call to rapid need for innovation to happen. And when they answer that call, we want them in the classrooms as well. We want projects to be in the classrooms so that the next generation of students gets their hands on this project and contribute to the challenges that they're facing to rapidly innovate. Other things are curriculum innovation. We have to think beyond what we have right now because things are changing so fast. People are talking about manufacturing in space. What are the classes we have that can help the students actually gain the knowledge how microgravity changes all the equations that they're learning. So with the fundamental engineering, we also need project-based hands-on courses, and we need industry to partner with us for it. One of the good things that NASA and other government agencies have done is to introduce challenges, like RASCAL, right, Human Lander Challenge. These are things that bring a lot of students excitement and have them realize that their thoughts and ideas are really valued, that we actually care about them. We know that they can contribute to what's happening right now in the space era. So those are some of the things, and I think beyond all of that, we all have to think about space in terms of sustainability and environment as well. We have a chance to incorporate that in everything that we do right from the get-go. So this is a great time, I think, and this is how I think we do that.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Would you care to add something else to that? How do we foster innovation?
I'll add two things to that. One is sharing what's called a hashtag, I don't know, a thing we say in our work about your place in space. And I think that builds on what you were saying, that there's a role for everyone, regardless of your interest, your expertise, where you're from, who you are, to play in the space sector. And I think it's getting people, having that awareness, making it easy, making the on-ramps easy for people to, see themselves in it, see where they fit in is what is really, really important. And then the other piece that I jotted down when you were speaking is about creating safe spaces. And so I think it's important for industry, for academia, for the government to create spaces that are safe for students and learners of all ages to explore. Right, and see where they fit in, see how they fit in, see how they contribute, and also be open to receiving what it is they're bringing to the table. So I think that's what I would add.
So definitely our community needs to feel safe to want to be in this place. Dr. Torres Nieves, do you care to add additional comments?
Yeah, I wanted to add that sometimes when we think about innovation, we think about entrepreneurship, commercialization. But there's a lot of innovation that can also be done at the very fundamental research level or in creating curriculums. So I believe that it's important for institutions, academic institutions, since that's the focus of this question, to make sure that they actually foster innovation and empower innovators, not only normalize it, but actually empower innovators. Because as an innovator, sometimes you could feel, since you're changing something, you tend to feel pushback from the institutions. There's some resistance to change. So making sure that we have a culture of innovation that actually empowers innovators is key to fostering those activities.
Thank you. So we all have to contribute to that innovation. Administrators and students and faculty and staff, everyone have to contribute to that for what I hear. I'll stay with you, Dr. Torres Nieves, and ask you, how can we bridge the gap between academia and industry to create a transition for aspiring space innovators?
Yeah, so I think collaboration between both organizations, if we want to bridge the gap between academia and industry, collaboration and partnerships are key. But in order for those collaborations to be successful, we need to acknowledge that those two organizations are very different. So we need to have open communication about the constraints that both organizations have and make sure that we define goals in common, but also goals that are unique to each one of the institutions. So for instance, at the University of Puerto Rico at Mayagüez, we recently developed TurboLab, a collaboration with Pratt & Whitney Puerto Rico, and I believe that because of the fact that I had experience in industry, I've been able to serve as the liaison between academia and industry, trying to identify that we have different paces, that we have different constraints, that we have different incentives. And in developing projects that merge those interests, I think that's how we've been successful. For instance, for us in academia, for our faculty, working on research projects is key. For industry, workforce training, that's at their core. So we've recently developed a program where we use research projects as a platform to train our students and faculty in areas that are of interest to industry. So making sure that you acknowledge the differences and you work towards them, I think that's the key for a successful collaboration and making sure that you can reach that goal.
Thank you. Dr. Ragavan, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think that this is really great, exactly what you said. There's also the opportunities maybe for having accelerators, incubators, and research hubs. And we've had some of that at Embry-Riddle, where we have a research park and called the Microplex, and that gives spaces for students to actually prototype and access to small business leaders so that they can get advice on things like patents, discoveries, which are not that straightforward. We don't learn that in a classroom sometimes, and just getting access to startups is something that they can use to encourage them to do startup activities as well.
And the only thing I'll add to that is around government. And so we talked about the bridges between academia and industry, but I think there's also this other piece for government, I'll put a plug for federal service, that I think is also a piece to this, right? Because understanding how things work at an even different pace and a different scale within the federal government, within departments and agencies is really important for, I think it's important for faculty to understand. When I was a professor, I didn't know, so I had to learn when I transitioned. But I think it's important for students to learn and understand early in their careers in their education so that they can kind of see how, get a better sense of the bigger picture and see how all of these pieces fit together so they understand what they're doing.
Thank you. So, Dr. Torres Nieve brought the collaboration part with industry and academia and how we have to work together. I would like to ask Dr. Brown about your thoughts on how we can, what is the role of interdisciplinary collaboration in preparing students for the challenge of the space industry?
Yeah, I think that's important because space is increasingly and inherently interdisciplinary. There's not just, people who do one, they know one thing and that's all they do. I think there perhaps may have been a time where it was like that, but that is absolutely not where we are now. And I also have heard and hear often that, I'm young also, so younger than me people, they want to be involved in many different parts of the system, many different parts of the life cycle of, say, the creation of a satellite. And so I think there are some models where you have to kind of start in a role as engineer 1 and then you become engineer 2 and then you just kind of work your way up into a vertical. Well, that model doesn't work for I don't think this generation because I'm young too, but for students now, right? They want to see the hardware, they want to see the software. And so in order to be able to do that and to contribute, you have to understand that. So I think that interdisciplinary preparation is really, really important. I think also the other piece about international collaboration, we are not going to space alone, we are not the only ones there. The benefits of space obviously are here in the US, but they are everywhere around the world, and so having that understanding and understanding again where your place in space is, how you fit in, is really, really important as space continues to grow and the industry continues to grow. I think we're in a different time, especially with international collaboration, with interdisciplinary nature, all of the innovation that we're sparking. It's really, really important that I don't think it's just the responsibility of industry. I think it's industry, academia, the entrepreneurs, the government, in order to provide these experiences for students as they're going through school, for faculty, right, who are training students, and also for those who are later in their careers who are thinking, I never thought about space as a place that I can contribute or that I want to get into, but maybe I can take what I've learned in area X, Y, or Z and apply it to space. And I think there's a lot more
Yeah, I think teaming is an important part of interdisciplinary collaboration. So, you know, teaming has always been important in aerospace, so in space is no different. So kind of bringing teams together in the classrooms itself and helping them to learn how to work in teams are very interdisciplinary areas. That's a big thing that we need to continue doing. But, you know, just looking around us today, I mean, this conference, a conference is like a place where networking is so important and it brings people together. The poster session is amazing. What we need to do is bring more students to these conferences. How can we do that? How can we encourage more funding for students to come to conferences like this? Because this is the place where they learn how to collaborate and how to look at all the different disciplines that contribute to some successful projects that have been happening. And that how each of their individual areas are part of a puzzle that when you put that together ends up creating something amazing, right? So I think getting students to come for conferences is a big thing.
Thank you. So collaboration is one of those big words today. We've heard it in almost every talk, and we have to continue doing that. Dr. Gutierrez, how can we better collaborate for our students?
Yeah, I strongly believe that to better collaborate, we need to be in constant communication with private industry, government, federal agencies, to understand not only their current needs, but what their future needs are going to be, and make sure that we align our efforts to make sure that we target those areas. As part of this question, I want to circle back to one of the comments of Dr. Brown in making sure that our students know how to work in interdisciplinary teams. I know there are a lot of students here, and I want to make sure that it's clear that we're not undermining the need of a strong background in your discipline. It's just that you also need to make sure that you know how to work in diverse teams. And that's something that's actually the main feedback that we've received from private industry and federal agencies is we have no doubt of how good your students are. We know that a mechanical engineering student from UDRM would excel wherever he goes. We want to make sure that that student also knows how to communicate with a software engineer, and an electrical engineer, and a computer engineer. And they know how to work in interdisciplinary teams. So making sure that we incorporate those into projects, into classes, into research, I think that's key to improve those collaborations.
And I'll say that that's important in policy as well, because you get into a room to talk about policy and you might have technical people, and you might have legal people, and you might have communications people, and marketers, all sorts of backgrounds in the room. And though I'm biased with what I'm saying is I think the most important thing, if no one else can understand me, and if I can't put it in the terms that make sense to anyone else, it doesn't really matter, right? And so I think it's that communication piece, understanding not just how to communicate, but what to communicate is really, really, really important for the students, but actually for everyone.
Communication very important as well, and space is full of all, right? So this interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary approach is really needed. It's just not purely related. Can you, each of you, comment on how do we leverage technologies and educational approaches to enhance space education? How can we bring more into this space? In a diverse manner and multidisciplinary.
I think that, you know, we have an opportunity to leverage the infrastructure that was created due to the pandemic, right? I mean, you know, 4 years ago, doing everything by Zoom was not a thing. But now we have created these systems and the structure. I think people are accustomed to being remote, to being distributed, to doing work asynchronously, and there's a way that we can leverage that. The part in my mind that I think about too is that we have to do that in a way that is also equitable. It's not, you know, some people who can afford to be here in person have an experience, and then it's fine for all of these other folks to kind of stay where they are and do it. So I think as long as there's a way that we make sure that everyone has the same access, there's makes sense to, but then, as was mentioned, we need to have funds so that people can actually still come together and have those experiences as well. So I think we can leverage that infrastructure.
I think virtual labs, virtual reality has a really good place in kind of helping people understand, space. That's been often used in terms of like simulators and simulation devices in aerospace, and we can kind of take that to understanding operating in a microgravity environment. But what's really important is that we all get together, because space-related research and technology tends to require very expensive facilities. So how about if we all kind of connect and find out how we can leverage each other's facilities and where we should focus some of the strengths in developing some of these facilities that can benefit students in different places if we collaborate.
Doris, you can comment on the technologies, educational approaches.
Yeah, we do need to leverage on those technologies. We also have to make sure, like in business, they say you need to know your customer. So know our customer, know what they want, know how to tailor those technologies and the knowledge that we have to them. I like Sida's comment about looking at the spacesuits and all of the fashion that could go into it. I was recently talking to a mom, and she was saying she had a girl, she was in high school, and she loved aerospace and mechanical engineering, but she also loved drawing and fashion. And the mom was like, so I'm not sure where she would fit. And I asked the mom, I was part of another panel, and I told the mom, do you know that they are the fashion industry for the spaces, so she could actually combine both. So making sure that we use the tools that we have to tailor those questions, those unknowns, the things that students and the pipeline that we're creating answer those questions, and make sure that we tailor everything we do to make sure that we can attract them and understand that it's, and particularly space is very interdisciplinary, so there's opportunities for a lot of fields within it.
Thank you. We would like to take questions from the audience to our panelists, to give any sense, anything that you can. And I know that we've been addressing them as Dr. Brown, Dr. Ragban, Dr. Torres Nieves. We all know people. When we try to engage our students, we have to remember that we are all, and they are all people. So I'm going to start calling them by name. Sheila, Sita, Quincy, thank you so much. We will like to take some questions from you.
I'm going to borrow one of the mics so I can go to the audience. I saw some hands over here.
Hello, thank you so much. I think you kind of addressed soft skills in terms of communication, but I am puzzled about how, in collaboration between academia and the private sector, academia speeds up because it's not transforming at the pace that the private industry needs it. And going beyond communication, there's other soft skills that are super important these days. I see a big focus on hard skills, but not on soft skills. So I would like to learn from you how universities can integrate, or how our universities integrate this so necessary soft skills into the formula. And also I would like to know about if the university cannot move as fast as private sector needs, what are the options for students to get educated in skills that they need so when they graduate, they are in a better position to be hired by the private sector, especially in these days where artificial intelligence, robotics, and all that are going to speed even further at the pace at which we are going to be innovating.
Yeah, I can start with that question because that aligns very well to the projects that I work on at the university. So in terms of the soft skills, it's not that they're ignored, they're actually at the forefront of, for instance, a simple example of the projects that I provide my students in courses. I know there are a few that presented on Tuesday, so they can attest to what I'm gonna say. So what we've done is we've identified those skills: communication, knowing how to summarize a semester-long project in a couple of minutes, making sure that you understand who your audience is, automating all of the processes to make sure that you add value and you don't keep on recalculating everything by hand, public speaking, giving presentations in English, writing technical reports in 5 pages instead of 40 or 60, which is what academics are typically used to. So the projects that I've designed for the courses in the minor for aerospace sciences and engineering, all of them attack those soft skills. Students have to present in 4 minutes. They have 5 pages in the AIAA format so that they understand how to write a technical publication, things that they don't typically like writing a short bio sketch. Sometimes there's a lot of pushback from students. Why do I need to write that? Is that really necessary? So making sure that they have those soft skills, using a technical project as a platform to train them in those. We've incorporated those as part of the courses. And on a bigger scheme, recently we launched the TurboLab Research Project Initiative. And what we're doing is we are providing funds to our faculty to define a project aligned to their area of expertise, but using those projects as a platform to train the students in the terminology, using the software that industry would need to reduce that training time once they're hired.
I also agree with all of those. Those are the kind of soft skills we need to develop. So in the university, we tend to have students connect with industry a lot. Mentorship is a key part of this. So having industry mentors that come in to talk to our students, to connect with them, to work with them on some of these challenge projects throughout the semester, for example, back and forth, so they get the feedback they need about how they're presenting, how they are, talking about their product or their project. We also have launch or venture competitions, so when students have ideas that they want to start a company or product, they share it with industry participants. We're lucky to have a lot of alumni, but then we also reach out to many different people in companies to be industry mentors, and we always need more, so looking around, I'm sure some of you would like to volunteer.
Yes, we have another question here and another question up front. If I might add, I think part of this is because along the years, academia has turned into specialization and turned away from intersectionality of the different fields. And it didn't used to be that way when science took humanities classes and humanities took business classes. There was an interconnection in academia. I'm not an expert, but I went through it and I know it helped me a lot. I have another question here.
Good afternoon. Excellent panel. Fernando Mujia, the Chief Innovation Officer at University at Atlantic University. One of the things we face, and I'm sure you as academics as well face, is how do you find the time to create a space where you can experiment when you have on the other end regulators and accreditors that require certain hours that are needed for study. We need to create more space for experimentation. So I would like to know how do you manage those things.
I can start potentially. So one of the things we try to do is to encourage a lot of undergraduate research in the university, and that can come in the form of research opportunities, connections with students that happen organically in the classroom, but also formats where students can take credit hours just for directed research or research opportunities. And then we have opportunities for them to present posters, and this kind of gives them the ideas of what they like to do in terms of focusing on an area, but also connections to, do I want to do graduate research? And some of the research becomes applied. Of course, we also have capstone design projects, so those are also opportunities for students to kind of engage in that format.
In terms of timing and restrictions by accreditation and credit hours, one of the things that we are looking into among the collaborations, curriculum strengthening is one of the things that we want to target. And there's a lot of positive feedback, but that would potentially require to create new courses, and we're trying to stay away from that and trying to be more agile, as I was saying, in making sure that we can merge the pace of academia and the pace of industry. So one thing that has been successful is incorporating short modules, experimental modules within classes. Perhaps it's not going to be a semester-long project, but maybe one lecture providing a module, an experimental module where students can validate what I taught them analytically, test that experimentally and validate those results. So that would also touch into some of the soft skills, into making sure that you know how to validate your results, make sure that you understand what are the assumptions that you would need when you translate an analytical problem into an experimental one. And we've been successful in incorporating those so that we can strengthen the curriculum without having to create new courses or because of the difference in pace. Yeah.
Question? Hi. My question is more geared towards Dr. Brown, since I see that you also work in policy, and I guess this goes for everyone that may be interested in policy. So as a researcher that is interested in policy, I was wondering if you had any advice on, or I guess ideas on what routes one should take to go into policy, and also maintaining, the integrity of being a researcher, but also being, I guess, an agent of change for, policy making.
So I would say, I'll talk about my path in. I did a AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellowship, and this was something that I did as a faculty member. So I was a professor, and then after a few years took a leave of absence to do the policy fellowship, and then got home. So I haven't gone back to academia, sorry y'all. Kind of staying in the policy and nonprofit space ever since. But there are a great number of internships. So I'll put a plug in for the White House internship program. That's a great one. The Office of Science and Technology Policy at the White House it's a different application, but OSTP has an internship program for students, and there are many others in DC. Lots of the federal departments and agencies have internship programs and pathways to go from being an intern to being a full-time employee. And so I think one of the things I'll say that I did not understand until I got into policy is what policy actually is. Like, I knew what the word meant, but it was like, what is policy, right? And so I think it's a whole different language, a whole different universe, to be, pun intended, than what I was doing in computer science and engineering. That's really, really important, because again, you could be technically sound, you could be technically correct, but if you can't communicate that to the lawyers, if you can't make that clear to the people who do create policy, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it's not as, it doesn't matter as much as you might imagine. And so I think that would be what I would say is, and to keep the balance. I mean, I've definitely lost my research edge, but I still read papers. There's still topics that I'm interested in. I have lots of friends who are still researchers, who are faculty, and so I stay connected to the work that way, and do still not as much anymore academic writing, and so publishing in journals, just kind of keeping into that grind. I haven't totally let go of yet, but I think it's important to kind of be able to be in both spaces.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. I'm going to add to this question. We had a conversation this morning that we're saying we need another panel just to discuss this question. There are a lot of opportunities for students, for faculty, for people in our community, and we need to really be talking about that because there's a lot of opportunities for us to grow. So we propose for our next one that we do bring a panel to talk about it, and everyone in here have information. And there's actually, I know people that I look around and they have a lot of information and opportunities to go into policy, into research, into a lot of other components that we talk about have to be collaborative with the industry, with academia, and with the government.
Yeah, and it's important for students, but I think it's also really important for faculty because often faculty only know being faculty. And so when they talk to students about what their options are, what the paths are, and their experiences, they talk about what they know, which is being faculty. And so for faculty to have experience, we talked about IPAs, I think it's personnel agreement, I can't remember what it stands for, but it's for an opportunity where people who are not federal government employees can come into the federal government and work for a number of years. Right? That's something faculty can do so that they can understand what policy is like, and that's an experience they can bring back to their institution and then be able to talk to the students about.
So I know that there's a lot more that we could talk about, but we are limited in time, so I'm gonna ask them to have one closing statement for each of our panelists, maybe a minute or not more than that.
I think I can be less than a minute. I think the important thing that I'll leave is that there's a role for everyone, right? Some people are at large companies, they can hire 25 million interns. Some can only do one. Some can be a mentor, right? Some can have one intern. And so I think there's a place for everyone in kind of addressing a lot of the things that we discussed here. So that's what I would say.
I definitely say the same as well, that there's, everyone else who feel like they have no connection to space. We need to somehow bring them into space research and technology and help the pipeline. I also want to thank everyone here and all the students especially, because if you don't know it, you guys are the energy and the inspiration for us as well.
Yeah, thank you. I want to reiterate that, and I don't want it to be a pun, but there's space and space for everyone. There's a lot of, you said that? There's a lot of opportunities for everyone. You just have to find your niche, whether you want to be an academic, you want to work in policy, whether you want to be an entrepreneur, an innovator, commercialize the technology. There's a space for you and there's a way to achieve it. And as in my role as an academic, I'm here to facilitate and to guide you as to the best resources so that you can get to where you want to go.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. We will be around. Any questions, any comments you want to talk to us, come and talk to us. We're happy to do that. I know that we have to move forward. I will continue. Thank you so much.